Now call our regularly scheduled Dunwoody City Council meeting to order for October 15th, 2024. Councilmember Harris, will you lead us in invocation and the pledge?
If everyone would please rise. At this meeting, help us to make decisions which keep us faithful to our mission and reflect our values. Give us strength to hold to our purpose, wisdom to guide us, and a keen perception to lead us. And above all, keep us charitable as we deliberate. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Stacy. The first item on our agenda is the swearing in of a new Dunwoody police officer. Officer Wood, will you please step up to the front, please?
Good evening. It's always a pleasure, obviously, for us to highlight our officers in front of council. But it's even better when we have somebody that we can onboard and swear in and have them join our police force. We'd like you to meet Connor Wood. He has a bachelor's degree from Kennesaw State University. Just graduated from the Fulton County Public Safety Academy 2 weeks ago. And we're thrilled to have him in our training phase already. His family is here as well, and we're all ready for you to swear him in.
Just raise your right hand and after me.
Yes, sir.
On my honor, I, Connor Wood,
On my honor, I, Connor Wood,
solemnly swear and affirm that
do solemnly swear and affirm that
I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America,
I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the State of Georgia,
the Constitution of the State of Georgia,
and the Charter and ordinances of the City of Dunwoody, Georgia.
and the Charter and ordinances of the City of Dunwoody, Georgia.
I am not the holder of any unaccounted for public money
I am not the holder of any unaccounted for public money
due to this state or any political subdivision or authority thereof.
due to this state or any political subdivision or authority thereof.
I am not the holder of any office of trust
I am not the holder of any office of trust
under the government of the United States,
under the government of the United States,
any other state,
any other state,
or any foreign state which I,
or any foreign state which I,
and by the laws of the state of Georgia, prohibited from holding.
am by the laws of the State of Georgia prohibited from holding.
I am otherwise qualified to hold the office of a peace officer
I am otherwise qualified to hold the office of a peace officer
according to the Constitution and laws of the state of Georgia.
according to the Constitution and laws of the State of Georgia.
I will faithfully follow the legal rules, regulations, policies, and procedures
I will faithfully follow the legal rules, regulations, policies, and procedures
of the Dunwoody Police Department and the City of Dunwoody, Georgia.
of the Dunwoody Police Department in the City of Dunwoody, Georgia.
Congratulations, Officer Wood.
Thank you, sir. I have my family here, but
Let's get one with council first.
yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect, thank you. And if you'd like to get a picture with your family, please go as well. Okay, Mama. Thank you very much. Congratulations.
Officer Wood, it's always a great day when we get to swear in a new police officer for the city. On behalf of the mayor, the city council, and all of the residents of the city of Dunwoody, we want to welcome you with an open heart to our city and let you know how happy we are that you chose to serve in the city of Dunwoody. We hope you'll find that the residents and the council and the mayor all support our police department 100%. There's a very mutual respect. And I think that's been earned by the police department by the way they serve our community. So we welcome you. We thank you for choosing the Dunwoody Police Department. And please let us know if there's anything that we can do to help you do your job better. So thank you and welcome aboard. Okay, the next item on the agenda is public comments. Each speaker will have up to 3 minutes to speak. When you get to the podium, please state your name, and then you will have 3 minutes. The first speaker is Rustam Manuksha.
Good evening. I'm Rustam Maneksha. I'm the board president at Dunwoody Nature Center. I'm here along with some fellow board members, as well as our executive director, Nancy Longacre. We're here with regard to the boardwalk and wetlands project, which is on the agenda. In short, we support the project. The boardwalk is an important area for us. It's used for camp, it's used for programming, and our visitors enjoy walking through it on a daily basis. So we're looking forward to seeing the upcoming improvements. And again, we support the project here tonight.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Robert Wittenstein.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Robert Wittenstein, 1146 Bordeaux Court. I'm also here to support the boardwalk project at the Dunwoody Nature Center. The partnership between the Dunwoody Nature Center and the city of Dunwoody is one of the things that I think makes Dunwoody a very special place. It's an incredible city of Dunwoody park, and the ability for that boardwalk to be replaced is really essential. It's long overdue, and we appreciate the city's support. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. The next speaker is Joe Hirsch.
Hi, Joe Hirsch. As each of you on council are aware, I filed a motion to add our corrupt city manager, Eric Linton, to my open records lawsuit against the city. He is a criminal, just like our city clerk, Sharon Lowry, yet he too remains on our city's payroll. What a disgrace he is and all of you for turning a blind eye. The pervasiveness of corruption runs deep within Dunwoody. Remember the oath of office each of you took? I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will faithfully execute the office of council member of the city of Dunwoody and will, to the best of my ability, support and defend the Constitution of Georgia and the charter, ordinances, and regulations of the city of Dunwoody. To the best of your ability. Wow. You all have set the bar pretty low, since not a single one of you has publicly shown any interest in the crimes of several of our city's employees. If you can truthfully say that you have demonstrated to the best of your ability, supported the charter of Dunwoody, then God help us all. I hope that each of you has read the email I sent you in my court motion about Eric's crimes and how poorly our city is run on his watch. If you are unfamiliar with our charter, the very first thing it says about the role of city manager is the city manager shall have the power and it shall be his or her duty to, 1, see that all laws and ordinances are enforced, which is kind of difficult to do when he himself has conspired with Sharon Lowry to commit crimes. And as I gather more information in upcoming proceedings, I assure you that Eric is going to look even worse. You cannot pretend to be ignorant on this matter. Show some integrity. My time and funds are unlimited for this lawsuit, while the costs to the city are mounting. And you all are condoning the waste of taxpayer money along with damaging our city's reputation. Why do you want to fight being transparent and abiding by the law? Is this really the hill you want to stand on? What does your God tell you about honesty? As you likely understand by now, I am not going to stop in my pursuit to get the city of Dunwoody to properly abide by laws regarding transparency. I believe openness and transparency in government are crucial to operating a good and just government. It promotes efficiency, effectiveness, and accountability. Tom, Rob, Stacy, John, do the best of your ability, really. Speak up and demand transparency. Honor your oath of office.
Thank you. And that concludes the public comments portion of our meeting. Just a reminder for everyone, there is another opportunity for public comment near the end of the meeting for those that wish to stick around. Next on the agenda are reports and presentations. City manager report. Eric?
Point of information, if I may.
Yes.
Is anybody else joining us on this meeting? Is there anybody that's? She's not on yet. Okay, I was told that she may be on. I wasn't sure if that was announced or not announced, so it's just the four of us at the moment. Thank you. I just want to make sure I understood that.
Okay, Mayor, we have the city manager's monthly report ending October 11th, 2024. I'll start with the Parks Department. We have the skate park mural request for proposals has been opened now, so that is going to be coming up soon. We also have the October 12th was the last Groovin' on the Green. We have the Truck or Treat on October 24th. We also have the Howling Halloween photo and Blessing of the Pets, October 27th. A Veterans Day ceremony is coming up on November 11th. For those of y'all who are able to attend, the new Vietnam Veterans Memorial is now open. So if you haven't had a chance to go to Brook Run Park and take a look at that, it's a very good example of a partnership between the Vietnamese community and the American community to come up with the new statue that's out there. So please take a look at that. We also have the November 14th holiday family photos on the North Shallowford Annex, and the holiday lights will be December the 1st. This year, for the fourth year in a row, the department was awarded the Georgia Parks and Recreation Association District 6 Agency of the Year Award. So that is something to be proud of as an entire community. Also, we have the Two Bridges Park logo sculpture was approved by the Dunwoody Arts Commission. You'll see that there's a photo of that within the report. The splash pad is now closed for the season. It's being winterized. The shade structures are underway as well for that park. So when we put it in last year, we wanted to have some shade structures. We didn't want to interrupt the season this year by putting them in during the season. So we've added those now for next season. We also have completed our annual grass overseeding. Under the data, there's some unique facts and figures there. We have the we sold out 6th annual farm to table dinner auction, which is on September the 21st. We also had the hurricane that came through. Fortunately, it did not hit our area like it did some other parts of the country, but we did have about 16 incidences that we took care of during that time. We did have also, as a community note, the senior baseball, Dunwoody senior baseball entered 5 Diablo travel teams into 10 weekend tournaments. So a very active program there. We also have the butterfly experience at the Dunwoody Nature Center, welcomed over 2,800 guests. So another successful operation there. The police department, I wanted to point out, Officer Hernandez presented the high school safety presentation to the Dunwoody High School junior and senior class to discourage students from committing illegal acts during junior and senior wars. We also have, we had the free child safety seat check, which is held here at City Hall about the middle of last month. And then we had a tabletop exercise with DeKalb Emergency Management Agency and the DeKalb Watershed. And that was supported by both Public Works Director Michael Smith and both Deputy Chief Flatterick and Lieutenant Dove. And that's just to be aware of anything that could happen at that facility that we have here in the city, which is the water plant. As a big note, I want to point out, on October 3rd, DeKalb County has partnered with Frontline Response, which aids the homeless people for up to 1 year. And since that time, we've used that service 4 times to help people in need that are within our community. And that is a program that the county is going to continue to fund. Of course, that's a service that the county provides. And that we're, of course, Dunwoody is part of the county. And so if there's any homeless needs anybody sees, please contact the police department so we can get them in touch with frontline response. Looking underneath the, I want to point out as you continue to read through the police document, there is a big data section here. Go through the crime stats. There's a link within the report. We did use our real-time crime center during the hurricane event, and we staffed that, and it worked flawlessly. It was nice to have the cameras. We could keep up with everything and have people gathered in the room to take care of events as they occurred. The gateway sign has been completed on Perimeter Center Parkway. If y'all, and there's a picture of that within your report. Also, the Shamley Dunwoody sign is scheduled to be installed this month. We're also acquiring the remaining right-of-way. We've acquired, excuse me, the remaining right-of-way for Mount Vernon and Tilly Mill Intersection Improvement Project, and also completed the Art Center parking lot resurfacing, and that was very important. We had a goal of completing that about 2 weeks ago prior to the early voting, which started today. So we wanted to get that done. We also are finalizing our paving in the perimeter area, Perimeter Center West, Perimeter Center Parkway, and the south end of Ashford Dunwoody Road. That'll be done by the end of the month. Let's see, we had, this next part just talks about the hurricane response a little bit more from a public works standpoint. Once again, I wanted everybody to know that the citizens know that staff was here, operating for a 48-hour period during that time, to make sure there weren't any incidences that occurred. As y'all know, the storm originally was scheduled to hit, come directly over Dunwoody, but it did move to the east at the last moment. Ashford Dunwoody Path Phase 1, on the plaza there, the Hammond Drive area, that work will be completed this month. We also have the Perimeter Center West pedestrian beacon. It's also will be operational by the end of the month. We're working now with about 7 different proposals for the Brook Run maintenance facility. We'll finalize that very soon. And also completed some other storm line repairs at Buckline Crossing, Fountain Blue, and Dunwoody Club Forest. Some other highlights within communication. We have the Dunwoody Digest that went out in late September. I did mention earlier about the Vietnam Memorial, but there's a piece on our website you need to take a look at, which is a video that was done by our communication staff. It's excellent. Also, we have a code enforcement brochure that's gone out, which is a kind of a facts for our residents to look at, and also businesses to make sure they're staying within compliance. Just a quick guide. We did have the Youth City Council, where Councilman Hennigan presented, had a big turnout for that. And also the mayor is going to present on October 24th to the Youth City Council as well. Community development, we have we've had our in-person workshop for Direction Dunwoody Comprehensive Plan and Unified Development Ordinance. We had approximately 60 residents attending that. So that's a project that's going to continue on. I encourage everybody to get involved in that. Anybody in the city who has any interest in our codes, as well as our comprehensive plan for the city, please contact our community development department, and they can take your comments on that. We also had our household electronics event at St. Luke's Presbyterian Church on September 29th. We had 470 residents attend that, which was 5 more than we had the year before. So it's just a pretty consistent stream of people recycling those type of electronics. Finance, the monthly financial report for August was published to the website. We also have our ARPA and CARES Act web pages have been updated through the end of August. We have our budget probably hearing tonight, of course, is our first public hearing for our budget. The second one is our second meeting in October on the 28th of October at 6 p.m. And that will be the final adoption for the budget. The last comment I'm going to reach out to is for human resources. And the city has filled the following positions: 3 police officer and 1 business retention and cultural development manager position. So I wanted to point that out, and also I'm glad to answer any questions y'all may have on this report. We have most of our staff here as well to answer those questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Comments, questions, Rob?
Not a question, just a comment. I just wanted to thank you and the police department for the email communication during the Hurricane Helene incident. It was nice to get those updates. And I actually did have a citizen reach out with a question, and I was able to answer it because I had information that was reasonably current and reasonably accurate that I could share. So I appreciate that.
Thank you, Eric, for the update. I think Dunwoody missed a horrendous storm, and we're very lucky, very blessed that we weren't worse affected. On your update, you mentioned the DeKalb County Emergency Management Association and the Dunwoody PD working on the dam safety. In your update, you talk about the collapse to the north, and you talk about Gwinnett County. I previously had concerns about the dam on the south side going through the Dunwoody North community. There's a report and a safety audit that's supposed to be done. If staff can double check and make sure that that was completed and that the DeKalb Emergency Management Association is, that dam is safe. I guess a storm like what could have happened, there's a report out there that shows worst case scenario where a wall of water would go over Peachtree Industrial that far down. So I just want to make sure that we are doing our due diligence on the south side, not just the north side. Chief, I think you might want to. Please.
I can actually take a few minutes and address that. I was at that tabletop.
Okay.
Quite frankly, we also thought it was going to address a dam break to the south. And I was told then that they decided to go and handle the first tabletop to a potential dam break to the north, followed up later by Arcadis, the company that's contracted to work those tabletops for DeKalb EMA. Again, to be addressing the south break potentials at a later time that, we will attend as well. Share your concerns. I'm sure you remember we had some email traffic back and forth about the current concerns that came up with that emergency action plan, but that is part of it. They're actually reworking that entire plan. So the same points that I had initially sent to the DeKalb EMA were also sent to the contractor that is putting that new plan together.
Well, I appreciate the actions of both Dunwoody and DeKalb working together. I just want to make sure that we are working towards a goal of making sure that report, the dam has been inspected, the reports are done, and any worst case scenario, DeKalb and Dunwoody can work together seamlessly if any emergency were to happen. So those tabletop exercises are invaluable. So thank you for doing that. Again, I'm just also concerned about the south side.
Oh, absolutely.
Dam. So just
And
want to make
that's actually our biggest concern as well.
Right.
And I actually checked on that. All those inspections have been done
Yeah, they were.
by the numbers, and we'll see what they come up with. And they've assured us they would make us part of that final review.
I appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Just a quick question, and Rachel, this one's for you. First of all, congratulations to your department for yet another award. Clearly they need to name it after the city of Dunwoody now. I don't know, just saying. The Two Bridges sculpture. So if I'm looking at the picture and then they have a picture of the cardboard cutout, so that's going to be the size of it?
Yeah, so it's about the size of me. It's like
Okay.
5 by 5.
And where's it going in the park?
Right there in the plaza where that second picture is.
Okay.
So you'll be able to see the playground as you look through it.
Very
Near
cool.
the parallel parking. That entrance.
And I always like to know when things are going to get done. What's the ETA on it?
So Hulani ordered all the steel last week. And we're just finalizing how we attack the concrete work. But she still thinks November of this year be done.
Oh, so next month. Very cool. And so then I guess, and then the shade structure is due to be done.
So we should be, so if you've been out there, you'll see all the big holes, big squares have been cut. They're ready for concrete. So that should be wrapping up next week for the pole installation. And then once the fabric comes in, then we've got just a couple days of another closure to hang everything.
Okay. Just as an aside, on Georgia Reed's Day, I was reading to the kindergarten classes at Vanderlyn, and I told them that we were getting shade structures at Two Bridges Park, and the kindergartners applauded. So clearly it's it made me laugh. So
Good.
clearly it's going to be popular. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I just have a comment, and really, Eric, I just wanted to kind of echo a little bit about what Rob said, and thank you, our Public Works and our Police Department staff for our the great work they did around Helene. I mean, we were fortunate, the original projections had it coming straight for us, and our fortune was other communities' misfortune. So we can't really celebrate that, but, I'm grateful, that we were not only prepared, but we were proactive, that our public works team was out there cleaning storm drains and getting ready so that if those floodwaters hit, that our systems would work as efficiently as possible. And I had a conversation with Chief Carlson a few days afterwards, and the implementation of the real-time crime center and how they were able to use that to monitor events going on, power poles down, streets that were starting to flood a little bit, and how valuable a tool that was for them and the city, and having all of our staff mobilized and ready. And as Rob said, the communication was outstanding, keeping us constantly communicated throughout the whole event of what was happening, how things were being responded to and being resolved. So please let the entire staff know how grateful we are as a city for their hard work and their readiness for that. So thank you. Okay. Oh, yes.
I'm here.
Hello, Lynn. Okay, so Mayor Deutsch, we are at we just finished the city manager's report. So do you have any comments or questions?
Just ditto what everybody said about storm preparation, and a special call out to Public Works, who was in literally the ditches, cleaning out problematic storm drains and getting them ready for what ended up being about 14 inches of rain in 36 hours. So I appreciate everyone's hard work. I am here unexpectedly. I'm sorry if you hear screaming in the background. That's why I'm away. But I cannot pull it up on my computer. So I'm operating off my phone. So I'm going to stay off video, but I am here, and I'll turn on video when I need to speak. Apologize.
Okay,
All
thank you.
right.
And we'll check in with you.
Right. When it's voting, or if I have a question, I'll let you know.
Sounds great. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, we have two public hearings this evening. The first is item number 3. Sharon, will you read that for us, please?
An ordinance to allow a drive-through facility at lot parcel number 18-349-04001 in consideration of a special land use permit, case SLUP 24-01 for 140 Perimeter Center West, Dunwoody 30346.
Thank you, Sharon. Floor is yours, Allegra.
Thank you. So the subject property, 140 Perimeter Center West, is a 15.85 acre shopping center known as Perimeter Square. It was built in 1994, and it's located along the border between the city of Dunwoody and the city of Sandy Springs. It's across from the Ashford Lane Shopping Center that's located across the street to the east. And the High Street redevelopment, as well as an auto care store, are located to the south. There's another shopping center, Perimeter Square West, to the north. In 1993, it was rezoned from OI, that's office institution, to C1, which is local commercial, for the development of the shopping center. And it's still currently zoned C1. Currently, the subject property has 7 tenants. So there's Total Wine and More, FedEx, PetSmart, Academy Sports, Haverty's Furniture, TJ Maxx, and the AT&T store. So Starbucks is proposing to install a drive-through facility as an out parcel along the eastern edge of the parking lot of 140 Perimeter Center West. That's directly north of the existing curb cut on Perimeter Center West. So in October 2023, the city adopted an ordinance requiring new drive-through facilities to get a special land use permit, which necessitated this application. The drive-through is proposed on a property that's zoned C1. A drive-through is allowed within the C1 district, provided a special land use permit is approved. So the proposed site area is a little less than an acre, and it would result in a net removal of 77 existing parking spaces compared to current conditions. The restaurant will be 1 story, 3,000 square feet, and would operate a single drive-through lane with 10 stacking spaces. The MARTA tunnel runs through underneath part of the site, so the project will be set back approximately 55 feet from the property edge in order to accommodate the MARTA easement. No structures are allowed on top of a MARTA easement, while parking and associated improvements are allowed. The project would include 2 pedestrian walkways. You can see one at the northern edge of the curb cut on Perimeter Center West, and then one at the northern edge of the lease line for Starbucks. And that one would be ADA compliant. So the walkway would extend an existing landscape island towards the shopping center and would improve pedestrian accessibility for the entire site. Currently, there's no pedestrian improvement such as this. And existing trees in the landscape island would be replanted in accordance with the landscape plan to the right. These are the facade materials. They would be primarily brick and glass. So one of the overarching goals of the comprehensive plan is to promote connectivity and choice for all modes of travel by providing 2 pedestrian paths, and only one is required. So they're providing an additional one as per discussions with staff on how to best serve pedestrians in this area. The project accommodates multiple modes of transportation for its customers and would improve walkability for the site as a whole, mitigating negative impacts from increased car presence. Staff is also particularly supportive of the reduction in surface parking for the site as a whole. Building on top of existing impervious surface is a more sustainable form of development, and the comprehensive plan highlights the conversion of surface parking to other land uses as a redevelopment strategy, particularly in perimeter center. Additionally, the shopping center currently has no restaurant, so adding Starbucks would diversify the current land uses present in the site and have economic impacts. The proposed new drive-through restaurant complies with all the requirements of the zoning ordinance, and the proposed use is fairly low impact. A restaurant is a typical tenant in a shopping center, and there's adequate land area for it, especially given the large amount of parking present on this site. Staff doesn't anticipate any adverse impacts upon any adjoining land uses. The proposed drive-through has adequate stacking distance to prevent issues in traffic flow in the area, and that's located to the rear of the building, giving cars plenty of area to stack up. In addition to meeting the city stacking requirements, the restaurant is situated further back on the property. Parking at the overall shopping center is pretty sparsely utilized, supporting the elimination of the 77 parking spaces. And the drive-through will make use of the current means of ingress and egress, which are wide enough to allow emergency vehicle usage. And the proposed dumpster is adequate for refuse purposes. So based on these reasons, staff is recommending approval of the special land use permit, subject to the 4 conditions shown on the screen here. The first condition, conditioning them to the site plan and elevations that they had submitted. The second and the third, stating that the pedestrian improvements and the right-of-way dedication would need to be shown as part of the land disturbance permit process. And the fourth one requesting them to have a window on the north facade of the proposed building. And so this went before Planning Commission on August 13th. There were no public comments. The Planning Commission had discussion around traffic circulation, pedestrian access, and the intersection with Perimeter Center West. They did vote unanimously. All 7 members were there to recommend approval for the SLUP. And they stipulated that Gaskins LaCroix, the engineering company working on this, would review the entrance exit on Perimeter Center West to see if there was anything they could do to improve circulation options in the area. And I believe they have considered that. They haven't submitted anything to us, but the applicant can discuss that more when they come before you all.
Okay, thank you, Allegra. And this is a public hearing, so without objection, I will open the public hearing. The purpose of the public hearing is to allow anyone from the public to offer their comments and suggestions on this project. There will be an opportunity to speak 10 minutes in favor of the project and 10 minutes for those that are opposed. It is a total of 10 minutes, not 10 minutes per speaker. So with that said, if there's anyone that would like to speak in favor of the project, you may come to the microphone. Seeing none, would anyone like to speak in opposition to the project? Seeing none, the public hearing is now closed. We'll open it up for questions for staff and the applicant to council. Rob.
I'm just interested in getting a little bit more information on what the planning commission's concerns were and how those were or were not addressed. You mentioned they had some questions about ingress and egress.
Yeah, so they just generally sort of had concerns about circulation in the area. For specifics on the stipulation that they wanted the applicant to review that particular entrance exit, I will defer to the applicant to speak to that.
Good evening. My name is Michael Toothaker. I'm with Gaskins LaCroix. We're the civil engineering firm for the project. They were asking us about the inbound traffic coming off of Perimeter Center into the shopping center, specifically, and just there's an island kind of right at the end of the throat there that forces a turning movement as you enter. And they just want us to look into it, like what it would take essentially to clean it up. And we looked at it, and there's really nothing you can do with that existing parking field in that area that doesn't have a domino effect on the entire parking field. And just, it would increase the scope of the project exponentially. So at this time, seeing that it's functioned since 1994, the way that it's laid out, and there haven't been issues, and due to the constraints that it would create to redo it, we have decided to leave it as is, at this time. So.
For the staff, I had questions regarding condition number 4. There was a talk of a window, and I also saw drawings. What are the changes in the drawings? What's shown, what's not shown, what's required, what's the new condition? Explain to me the reason why and how and what's going to happen.
Yep. So generally speaking, staff is supportive of having lots of windows on the building. We consider it aesthetically pleasing for the area. And so let me pull up that north facade. So that's the one on the bottom right. And so it's hard to see with the way the screening is, but the applicant has added a window behind that screening section.
So we've added a window behind screening to make it more aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah, the architect, I believe, is here tonight.
Good evening, Av Yassin from GPD Group. I am the architect on this project. So we did add a window per the recommendations. That north facade, we've got all of our primary functions back there. So that area holds our essentially back of house. We've
Right.
got electrical panels, we've got all the utilities coming there. So we're a bit constrained in terms of where we can actually place a window that would actually be functional. So we placed it where we've got areas for managers and the employees that are actually going to be for like a rest area.
Okay, so it sounds like you're okay with the window. It's in a functional place for both you and the community. It's not just a window that's blocked by shading that goes into your electrical panel.
Correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure I didn't understand where and how we were doing.
Right,
It sounds
yeah,
like it's a win-win for everybody.
Exactly. Yeah, we
You've
found
answered my question, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
One of my gifts is not reading site plans. So if somebody could just walk me through, I don't understand where the traffic comes in off and then where the drive-through is versus and if there's a conflict with parking.
So generally speaking, traffic would come in over here off of Perimeter Center West at the bottom right corner. And then it would circulate around over here at the bottom left. And the cars would go through here on the stacking spaces, and the rear of the building is the window where they would order and receive their orders.
So what are they circling around? So if they're coming in, they're straight and then they're making that right. So they're going clockwise to the drive-through. What are they circling around?
Sure. Okay. So you see the cursor here that's moving?
Yes.
Okay. So they're coming down this lane. They're going to hang a right into the site, heading north. They pass the dumpster. Once they enter this area, this is where they enter the drive-through. So the cars stack. The order points here. They continue down, head south. They stop. This is where you pick up your coffee, and then here you turn right or left to exit.
So then where, if I want to go and go in, enter the store, I assume there's seating inside the,
Sure. So
where do you park for
you
that?
can park here in the front in the existing parking spaces,
Okay.
or you can park back here in any of these spaces as well.
So the ones that you're pointing at now, they would have to cross the drive-through to enter the store.
Correct.
Okay.
But there is, per city comments requirements, there's stamped, pavement that's in contrast from the standard asphalt. just as like a traffic calming effect that gives a path for the pedestrian.
But the majority of the parking is in the front of the store, so it's just a hard right. When you enter the parking lot, it's a hard right.
Correct.
Okay.
I have a question. You might want to stay up there as well. Related to the parking, it's a little bit different than what's been asked. So when you're coming in and off of Perimeter Center West and you turn right and you're heading towards if you're going to the drive-through, what I want to do, we've already answered the drive-through questions. I presume that black, from my reading, that black line across there is a crosswalk, correct?
This area right here, or
Right when you come in off of Perimeter Center West, or you got that big,
right here.
Yeah, I can't, yeah, right, yes, I'm sorry.
Yes,
I was looking at my tablet and not the presentation
Correct.
tablet, like, I don't see it. So, okay, so, here's my concern. I presume the parking spaces that are pushed up against Perimeter Center West are basically gonna remain as they are today. That's what it looks like from the site plan and looking at the map. So those bottom, like, 3 spaces,
Yep.
there are a bunch of shrubs there, and that's gonna be blind backing out of there. I anticipate there'll be a lot of traffic coming to the drive-through to get coffee there. It just seems like a dangerous interaction there, and are those 3 parking spots necessary, I guess? Would it be better to push it up?
Yep. So we actually, this came up in the last meeting as well. We've actually eliminated those bottom 3 parking spaces.
Perfect.
And the sidewalk now continues up and you cross perpendicular, the pedestrian will cross perpendicular. So then there's a little more throat depth, right, for the cars that are backing out. There's more direct pedestrian access that crosses at a 90-degree from the travel lane. So yeah, that's all been updated as well.
Yeah, those were exactly my 2 concerns. As with regards to the pedestrian access there, it looks like the sidewalk's coming right along with that entrance into off Ashford, off of Perimeter Center West. Is there any opportunity to perhaps cross that across the grassy area there, like where the sign is, either in front of or behind the sign? Again, because you're just getting those pedestrians a little bit further away from the traffic coming in, and there are some bushes there as well, so that might shield the pedestrians from other vehicles. Is that an opportunity, or?
I mean, I know that the area there around the sign's heavily landscaped, and that's really the overall shopping center has to allow us the rights, I guess, to make any of those changes. Also, there is some grade change in that area that would be rather uncomfortable for a pedestrian if you made it more direct, straight across, as opposed to following kind of the perimeter that softens the topography a little bit. Because that access point down there is a secondary access point. It's not the ADA required access point. The ADA access point is actually
Up at the top.
up at the top, right? Because the grades and the topography down here just don't work for that. So.
Okay, yeah, I just thought it might be a more comfortable and safer pedestrian access, taking a different route in, and I think there will be some pedestrian foot traffic there as well. There's a lot of residential in the area, so I mean, if you could look at that and just see if it's an opportunity, especially with those 3 parking spaces going away at the bottom there and coming straight. I'm glad to see that the crosswalk's going straight across there. That was one of my big concerns. It seemed very dangerous, but if there's an opportunity, if the grade or the the development, the property owner doesn't want interference with the sign or anything else going on there, I would understand. But if you could take a look at it, that would be great.
Sure.
John.
I think I'll start with staff if I don't mind, if we may. Looking at the conditions, one of the conditions is that the site plan dated January 12th, 24, revised of July 30th, 24. Is that what we're looking at?
That is what we're looking at.
But then we were just told that it was modified and you've already made modifications, but yet we're approving this one that's published.
Yeah, so those modifications that he referenced were fairly recent, so this condition can be updated by the time it comes back to you.
I
all
would
for
hope that
second
the
read.
conditions get updated and an updated drawing and map and site plan and everything that's referenced is up to date and correct. Is there any other changes that you have made that you've not told us about regarding these site plans other than what was already discussed by the applicant?
No.
Okay, I'd love to get updated site plans so that we're all current, and when we look back at this 4 years from now, we can understand what happened.
Will do.
Thank you.
Mayor Deutsch, do you have any comments or questions?
Sorry, I do not. Thank you for checking.
Okay, thank you. We'll be seeing this again in a little while. So let's, our next public hearing is the fiscal year 2025 budget presentation. Richard?
Good evening, Council. Tonight is the first reading of the 2025 proposed operating and capital budget. So attached to the agenda item and posted with the packet, the agenda packet was the full 50+ page budget book. Got a brief presentation to go through that'll kind of summarize what's in that budget book. So we'll get started with first some background information real quickly. We have for the last 3 years budgeted a use of fund balance within the general fund, but did not use it any of those 3 years. We are closely monitoring 2024. Currently, we have a small use of fund balance budgeted around $700,000, largely dependent upon how property tax revenue comes in over the next couple of weeks. We'll know more if looks like we might use fund balance or not this year. Some of the guiding parameters we used for the 2025 budget development, there were really 2 things that we focused on: minimizing the use of fund balance within the general fund and keeping the projected general fund end of year fund balance to 6 months of reserve, basically, which is 2 months higher than the 4-month reserve that is required by charter. So those were the 2 guiding parameters as we built this budget for 2025. Real quickly, budget's a year-round event, but in particular, these last 3 or 4 months has been the main focus of the budget. So just hit on a couple of dates here to let you know what we've done. We kicked off the 2025 budget in early July of 2024 with departments submitting all of their budget requests, both operating and capital, by the end of July of 2024. August 13th and 14th, we held department review team meetings. So the review team consisted of myself, the assistant finance director, city manager, and assistant city manager. All departments came in and presented their 2024 budget and requests, and we had a really good discussion about everything, what's needed and things like that. So those are very productive meetings. The proposed mayor and city manager's proposed budget was published on August 30th, as required by charter. We had a special called City Council Budget Work Session on September 9th to review the budget and receive feedback from council. And then tonight is the first public hearing, and Monday, October 28th, will be the second and final public hearing with the goal of being adoption of the 2025 budget there. So that's everything that we've done so far. Before we get into the meat of it, I wanted to go through what are the assumptions that are included within this 2025 budget. So again, all of these that we're going to review are items that are included within the budget. And again, the majority of this focus is on the general fund. Keep that in mind as we go through. Modest revenue growth. So we've got about 2.4% growth in general fund revenues from 2024 to 2025. That has been consistent. We saw about 2.5% growth is what we budgeted last year as well. So we're consistently seeing that. We have included a 4.9% pay increase that would be effective July 1st. So 6 months of a 4.9% pay increase. We've also included all of the funding of the pay raises that took effect this year. So in June of 2024, actually it was May 30th, I believe, is when the raise took effect. But all the raises this year, the full year of funding is in this budget now for next year. We have a 6.5% health insurance increase, which is actually kudos to our HR department and our broker. That actually started off much higher, 12+%, and through negotiations that came down to about 6.5%. So in past years, we have seen a higher increase than that, but including this budget is 6.5% increase. A 12% increase in our general liability insurance, and that's all our property insurance and things of that nature. That's consistently what we've seen year over year for the past couple of years now. We are also fully funding all the staff that was approved this year. So we're approving we're including the 4 police positions for the new Special Investigations Unit that will be funded one more year, 2025, with ARPA 2 funds. We are funding the civilian fleet manager again in 2025. That's funded with ARPA 2 funds. And then all 4 public safety ambassador positions are funded in this budget. For 2024, we're funding them with salary savings, but for 2025, they are fully budgeted, all 4 for the full year. A couple of other things I wanted to touch on that are included. So for the past 2 years, we've had ARPA funding for the HR generalist and the business retention manager. So 2025 is the first year that those positions will be, for lack of a better word, absorbed within the general fund. We are funding all of our municipal contract agreements as well as all our right-of-way and parks maintenance contract. All of those are fully funded within this budget. And then the last piece is our debt service. So we have 2 debt service payments, one for City Hall, about $785,000 a year, and for Vermac Road, $465,000. So those are both fully funded as well. So those are all the assumptions that are included within the 2025 budget before you. I wanted to touch on a couple of things that are not included within the budget. So one of the things, and the first bullet point is changes to retirement. As we compare ourselves to other municipalities, we want to make sure our benefits are best in class, that they're very, very competitive. One of the things we've noticed is that some municipalities do contribute maybe 1% or 2% more to retirement than we do right now. So that's just something to kind of keep on the radar screen. 1%, if we increased it, 1% would be about $105,000. So just something that we're monitoring as we go through the year and things like that. The other we had 8 personnel requests that are not funded within this budget. 3 police officers, 3 CID detectives, and 1 PSR within police, and those are all recommendations as part of the Barry Dunn study. Our thought process with that is that they had some vacancies and they've worked very hard to fill all those vacancies. Once they're fully staffed, we will come back before council for approval of these positions. But we wanted to make sure that they could fully ramp up and get fully staffed, and then we'd look at focusing on including these positions within the budget. So we'll come back to you at a later time when we feel it's appropriate, when they're fully staffed, to discuss more about these positions, but they are not included in the budget right now. And then we did have a request for a budget management analyst. The budget department is me and the assistant finance director right now. So we obviously get pulled in many directions. So having a dedicated budget analyst that could also work with maybe city managers on city management with special projects and things like that, we feel that there would be some benefit to that as well. I wanted to add a note also in there that we're continue to evaluate converting contract positions to city positions as it merits, as it financially makes sense, and timing and things of that nature. That is something we do continually evaluate throughout the year, and we'll bring those back before council as well when we feel the timing it makes sense and it's right. So I want to talk a little bit before we get into the numbers about budget enhancement requests. So this year for 2025, slightly different approach to the budget and working with departments. We, being finance, entered all of the personnel costs into the budget, factoring in all the pay raises and health insurance increases and things of that nature. So finance took that. All of the non-personnel costs, basically, we asked departments to submit a 2025 budget that equaled their 2024 non-personnel cost budget. And then what we did is ask to any above and beyond requests, basically categorize them as 3 items: either maintaining the same level of service, one-time requests, or enhanced level of service. So that's how we approached the budget this year. We had some very good success with it. It really led to some good conversations during our department review meetings. We received a total of $2.7 million in enhancement requests. What's included in this budget are about $1.3 million of those requests, and what's not included is almost $1.5 million. So I'll start with the same level of service requests, and we received $898,100 in same level of service requests. So this is to maintain what the service level that we're delivering today, to maintain that same level of service in 2025. We included all of those in this budget, and it really broken down into four main departments. Facilities is $150,000, and that is really an increase in the maintenance and as well as utility costs that we've seen. Parks is about $282,000, and that's a result really of the staffing contract, the built-in price increases in staffing contract, as well as the maintenance contract as well. Police is $246,000. That's majority of that's really for the funding for the flock cameras that are a major function of the real-time crime center. When we first purchased those, we generally pay for them out of SPLOST, and we also generally will cover that first year of maintenance within SPLOST. However, once they're up and running, it's not really a capital related expense anymore. So we have to move those into the general fund. And that's what this represents, is really moving those annual maintenance payments into the general fund. And lastly is Public Works, about $216,000 in increases. And that's the same common theme: staffing contract, utility costs, and maintenance costs is what's driving those same level of service enhancements. So that's the same level of service. To touch on the other two real quickly, the expanded service level, we received $787,050 of requests. 54,740 are included in the 2025 budget, and 732,310 are not included in the budget. So what is included within community development is $5,000. It's just an increase in the front yard tree program and household waste event. We've just seen cost increases over the years for those. Within human resources, we've about $5,500 for EAP for law enforcement. So this is EAP is available to all city employees. This would be specific to law enforcement, though. Within for information technology is $6,000. It's for a vendor security risk management, and it would actually replace in a part-time contract. So there is some saving, part-time contract staffing position. There is some savings with this one, actually. So this one does make a lot of sense. Under parks is $20,000. They have identified some software that would be an upgrade to Civic Rec and that they'd like to move forward. It really not only does it help internally within parks more efficiently, it's also a much easier to use platform for citizens as they're interacting with parks, trying to rent facilities and things of that nature. So there's some benefits to that. And then last is police for a little bit over $18,000. And there's a couple of things that they funded there. Contract for medical director services, Fraternal Order of Police, Legal Defense Fund, and then a mobile vice investigative tool. Last category is one-time requests. So we had a little bit over $955,000 in one-time requests. We included $213,000 of those and did not include $742,500. They were really just two items that made up that $213,000. So community development's $200,000. It's really carryover funding related to the comp plan. So that was awarded earlier this year. We thought at the time they'd spend about $500,000 this year and $250,000 in 2025, based on the timing of when it was awarded. We actually think it's going to flip. It'll be about $250,000 this year in 2024, and then $500,000 in 2025. So this $200,000 gets the full $750,000 in funding for the comp plan and code rewrite, including any add-ons or anything like that in that total. And then last is a $13,000 for human resources. We try to fund a salary survey on a biannual basis. And so this 2025 would be a year that we would like to conduct a salary survey. So that is all the enhancement requests. And the only other two slides I'd like to share is headcount. So for 2024, we budgeted a total of 115 positions. And we highlighted on the slide there, we've converted 4 IT positions from contract to city positions. And then we talked about the 9 additional police positions. So we're going from a budget of 115 in 2024 to 128 in 2025. Again, those are city positions. All 128 are fully funded within this budget for 12 months, January to December. And so they're all there. One other slide to look at for 2025 is, we know on the left is the city positions. And what we wanted to do is give a feel, because the contract positions play a very valuable role for providing support to the city and residents. So we wanted to lay out kind of what those contract positions look like as well. There's 67 contract positions, with 30 of them being the parks and right-of-way maintenance. So that's the bulk of them. But you can see the breakdown there of the remaining ones. So when you look at the total heads, so to speak, it's about 195 positions in total that provide support for the city and residents. So moving on, this is the overall fund summary, and I just wanted to start with this. The rest of the presentation will mainly focus on the general fund, but I just wanted to highlight a couple of things here. The ARPA 1 and ARPA 2. So as you may recall, we received a lot of the ARPA. We received all of that funding actually up front. So when we received it up front, we took it into fund balance. So you will see the spending down of fund balance within those special revenue funds. We hope ARPA 1, the plan is to be done spending all of that by the end of this year. So that's why you see a budget of 0 in 2025. And we'll continue to spend down the ARPA 2 money in 2025 as well. In the multiple grants fund, why there's a slight decrease there is this year we've received additional LMEG money that we budgeted. So that's why it's a little bit of a million, almost 1.1 million this year. Right now, just the traditional LMEG is what's in the budget. So that's why you see a slight decrease there. SPLOST 1, the collections ended in March of 2024. So that's why it's a lower amount for 2024, and I'll explain the 2025 budget when we get to the capital section of the presentation. SPLOST 2 picked it up. So now, starting April of 2024, we're starting to collect under SPLOST 2, and that'll go through March of 2030. And 2025 is the first full year, so 12 months of collections within SPLOST 2. So you'll see that. And then last, on the capital piece, that is, again, that's where we've got projects, and I'll use the analogy of we've saved up for a vacation or saved up for a down payment on a home, and it's now time to put that money to work, so to speak. So that's why, though, you'll see a use of fund balance within the capital project fund as well. So those are on a very high level, again, it's a $67 million total budget in 2024, almost over $70 million in 2025, about a 5.3% increase in the total budget. The rest of this presentation will focus on the general fund, the day-to-day operating fund of the city, and we'll talk a couple of minutes about capital toward the end. So for the general fund, for 2024, we started the year with a $26.4 million unassigned fund balance. Currently, we have a budget of $32.9 million of recurring revenues and one-time revenue of $1 million, a little bit over $1 million that came from ARPA 2. So total revenues this year are almost $34 million, $33.9 million. For recurring expenditures, we show about $33.9 million in recurring expenditures, as well as $700,000 in one-time expenditures. So $34.7 million in total expenditure budget for this year. That's where we get the roughly $735,000 use of fund balance that's currently budgeted for 2024. That would leave us with total unassigned fund balance at the end of 2024 of $25.7 million. Approximately 9 months of is in our reserves, basically. To give some context of how much that is, a 4-month reserve is about $11.3 million. So the fund balance above that 4-month reserve at the end of this year would be $14.4 million. And 6 months above would be about $8.7 million, to give some context again of what that 9 months reserve looks like. So having that flow over into 2025, again, we'd start the year, we're budgeted with $25.7 million in unassigned fund balance. As I mentioned, recurring revenues are growing about 2.4%. So 33.7 million in recurring revenues, one-time revenue of a little bit over $2 million, and we'll get to that. So $35.7 million is the total revenue budget for 2025 general fund. Recurring expenditures are about $36.3 million. That is a 6.7% increase year over year there, with one-time expenditures of $720,000. So total expenditures for 2025 budgeted in the general funds, $37 million. That shows a use of fund balance of a little bit over $1.2 million. Assuming this holds, we would be at a shade over 8 months of unassigned fund balance at the end of 2025. That equates to about $24.4 million. $12.3 million above our 4-month reserve and $6.3 million above our 6-month reserve. So still very healthy and well above that one of the parameters we talked about being at least 6 months above having 6 months of reserves. Above and beyond that, we would be at 8 months at the end of 2025 within the general fund. To talk a couple of slides about revenue and expenditures within the general fund. So what I wanted to show, these are the larger categories that we kind of track revenue on. And as you can tell, all of them have some form, or the majority of them have some form of an increase. While we do still build in some conservatism, we are based off of historical actuals and things of that nature, where we try to get as accurate as we possibly can. For example, property taxes, that line item includes a 3% increase in the net digest. As you may recall, during the millage rate hearings, we've seen it be as high as 7.7%, and it's gradually ticked down. It was about 5% 2 years ago, about 4% this past year. So we've factored in a 3% increase to the net digest for property taxes. We continue to see strong insurance premium tax revenue come in. Let's see, some of the other items, investment income, we continue to try to take advantage of the rates. They have come down some, but we still continue to try to take advantage of rates the best we can to generate some additional income. Hotel motel tax and the motor vehicle, we still continue to see strong revenue there. So we've got a 3% increase in that. I did want to mention toward the bottom. So again, those are all the recurring revenues. If you look in the middle column for the 2025 proposed budget, $33.7 million in recurring revenue. We do have a transfer in from ARPA 2 of about $2 million to fund, continue funding within the general fund of police positions, day-to-day operations and things of that nature. When you transfer it out of the ARPA 2, that means that some of the initiatives within ARPA 2, we will not be able to fund. Recreational equity for $1 million is one of them. Grant writing, economic development, administrative costs, and then we eliminate the contingency as well as within ARPA 2. So that is how we came up within this budget with the $2 million that we're transferring in. So we're going to look at expenditures 2 different ways. We'll look at the traditional view kind of by department to show what the department budget year over year looks like, but we'll also look at it by category. I think we'll shed some light as well on how much we spend on personnel and things of that nature. So first, by department, the police budget is almost 40% of the 2025 proposed budget. So of the 36.2, almost $3 million in recurring expenditures and 37 million in total expenditures, police, again, in that middle column is $14.3 million, almost 40% of the 2025 budget. If you look at the 4 largest departments, IT, police, public works, and parks, they're about 70% of the total budget for 2025. And debt service makes up 4%. So that means capital and one-time expenditures about 2% of the total. So that means that the remaining departments are about 24% of the budget. So that is really a breakdown. And I'll just highlight a couple of the larger ones. I'm city clerk. We do an election every other year. And so 2025 will include $100,000 to CAB to put on our elections. Information technology, we continue to see, and we talked about this last year, we continue to see contract escalations and increases to the tune of about 7 to 10%, similar to what we saw last year. Facilities, the 150,000 we talked about earlier. Police is $1.5 million, and that really is all personnel, people-related costs for them. And then let's see, those are really the only ones that are big. Economic development, we've had we set aside $50,000 for the Art Commission within that budget, and then we also have a $35,000 for Create Dunwoody. We've previously used CARES and ARPA money to fund that. 2025 is the first year that that will be included within the operating budget as well. So that's by department. I want to take a quick look at by category also, just to show a couple of things. Personnel costs are $18.6 million of the 2025 budget, 51.3%. When you factor in that official admin services, which is our contractors, our municipal contractors, that total goes to about 60.6% of the proposed budget, 2025 proposed budget is related basically to people costs, if you want to call it that. So that's a definitely a large amount of our budget. Property and liability insurance and debt service is 5.8% of the budget. And so the remaining categories are 33.6% of the total budget, or about $11.3 million. On this slide, what we tried to do also, repairs and maintenance can get lumped together, and there's a lot of things within repairs and maintenance. So we wanted to break out the parks and right-of-way maintenance piece of it as well, to show kind of how much within repairs and maintenance is related specifically to that agreement. This year, this budget's about $2.4 million. And the other thing we want to pull out is a lot of the IT maintenance agreements as well, a little bit, almost $1.1 million for them. So to try to show some breakdown of that repairs and maintenance, it can be a large bucket, and to try to drill in a little bit to show where we're spending that money as well. That is all I think on that one. Let's see. So 2 slides on the capital improvement plan. So as part of this budget, there'll be a 2025 to 2029 CIP that's included within the budget document. These 2 slides are focused just on the 2025 figures. Within the Hotel Motel Fund, we've set aside almost $946,000 for continued funding of the Phase 2 Asher Dunwoody multi-use path. Also $125,000 for trail wayfinding signage. SPLOST 1, this is where I wanted to mention. So definitely some good news here. We had budgeted $43 million in expenditures within SPLOST 1. Now that SPLOST 1, all the collections have come in. We actually collected closer to $47 million. So this budget is going to put that $4 million to work based on the percentages of how the referendum was passed, meaning 83% will be transportation related, about 12% for public safety, and then the remaining amount would go to repairs and maintenance of capital assets. So transportation related projects are going to get $2.6 million, and it's broken out really among some a couple of projects there. That is really to fund needs within those projects as construction costs may have gone up, to fully fund those projects. There is one new project, the signal pole replacement at Hammond and Peachtree Center Parkway. That's the one new project within that $2.6 million, but the rest are all funding to existing projects. $1.1 million going to public safety for vehicles and equipment, and they've also set aside about $700,000 for a SWAT storage building. We are reviewing sites as to where that would be, and getting a design on that. So, but they've set aside some money for a SWAT storage building there, and then, as I mentioned before, $236,000 to facilities for continued repairs and maintenance. Within SPLOST 2, so this is the first year of full collections. 2025 will be the first year of full collections. Just some projects to highlight: $2.7 million in road resurfacing, plus about $500,000 in LMIG. So there'll be about $3.2 million in total for road resurfacing for 2025. As part of the special session that we heard, we had originally budgeted $1.8 million all in 2025 for the Chamblee Dunwoody Bridge. We have now spread that $2 million over 2025 to 2029 at approximately $400,000 a year. So that allowed us to pull in some additional projects within SPLOST 2. for example, $800,000 for the Chamblee Dunwoody corridor, and a couple other things that we did. Some of the enhancement requests that maybe weren't funded, we were able to identify 160,000 for ADA sidewalk ramp upgrades program, as well as $86,000 for a school flasher remote monitoring system. So we were able to by spreading out the Chamblee Dunwoody Bridge costs, we were able to pull in some projects and fund some new projects as well. Within SPLOST 2, there's also the public safety component, $700,000 for 9 replacement police vehicles, and then $425,000 for police equipment as well. And then finally, within the general capital project fund, we've set aside $220,000 for IT needs. We always try to set aside a certain amount for laptops and desktops as they continue to, the useful life on them can be short and technology can become advanced. We want to have some money set aside for new laptops and desktops. And then we also, as part of the Shallowford proceeds, we agreed to $600,000 a year for 5 years for a total of $3 million, I should say, within a general capital repair and improvements for parks and facilities. So this is year 3 of $600,000 as well for that capital project. So that's all the operating and capital budget with a focus on the general fund. I did want to include one more slide, just always thinking about the future. And I tried to highlight this. I would not consider this to be an all-encompassing list, but just to give an idea of some of the items that are, for lack of a better word, not funded with general fund, funded with alternative sources, maybe ARPA2 funds, for example. So we know the 4 police positions, the civilian fleet manager program, both of those are funded with ARPA2 in 2025. The co-responder program is funded with ARPA2 in 2025. The additional EMS ambulance service is funded with ARPA2, and then the Safe Streets position and any construction related to that project is all funded within ARPA2. In 2025, that all runs out. We don't have additional funding sources beyond ARPA2 in 2025 for those projects. So we would be looking for the general fund to absorb these costs as we think about that 2026 budget and things of that nature. So again, this is not an all-encompassing list, but we always have our eye on the future and just some things to bring to people's attention that, yes, we are utilizing ARPA2 funding for a lot of initiatives, but that does run out at the end of 2025. So with that, I believe, yes, that is my last slide.
Thank you, Richard. We are now at the public hearing portion. So without any objection, I will open the public hearing. As a reminder, the public has an opportunity to comment. There will be 10 minutes for each side, 10 minutes to speak in favor and 10 minutes to speak in opposition. We will start with those in favor. Anyone who would like to speak in favor of the budget, please work your way to the microphone. Seeing none, anyone who would like to speak in opposition? Seeing none, the public hearing is now closed. We will take questions from council. John?
Thank you, Richard. We've already discussed this once. We had a whole meeting with, I mean, this is just redo again. I appreciate all the information. Last year, council added a bunch of positions and a bunch of salary raises and things of that nature. And the funds are now coming to roost, and we need to pay those funds, and we have a budget to do so. And so kudos for finding a way to do that, to fund those positions, to fund those raises and get everything in this year. Unfortunately, 90% of your presentation was all about what's going to happen in the future and the federal funds that we're using to pay for those things. So I'm gravely concerned about what's happening in the future coming forward, especially as we have contracts coming up. All of our city services are up for renegotiation, and something tells me the prices aren't going to come down from the contracts that were let 5 years ago. So again, kudos for basically a bare bones budget funding what was added last year. Concerns for the future.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Richard, for the presentation and all the work that you and staff and department heads put into preparing this budget every year. I know it's a pretty heavy lift, especially, you know, there are a lot of demand for services, and not a lot of resources to match those demands. And I think the staff does an excellent job in helping us to prioritize where those funds need to go. I do want to take an opportunity here. I don't really have any questions, just to make some comments, because I continue to be a little frustrated by the public dialogue surrounding city finances. I continue to see posts in social media and letters to the editor about the out of control spending of the city council. And, you know, a year ago, there was a letter that said we had a $16 million deficit in 2024, which of course we do not. And other ones recently that were out of control spending. And I just need the public to understand that that is not reality. And in fact, from my perspective, I think the city's done a very good job of managing our, again, limited resources to an increased demand and services from our residents. Despite what the public says, we are not spending more money. In fact, every year, this year might be the first, but we have actually ended every year with a surplus. We have not ended the year with a deficit. And while that is a good problem to have per se, I'd much rather end with more money in the bank than not have enough. It also creates another problem because cities are not created to build up a piggy bank, if you will. We are created to provide services and to bring in just enough revenue to pay for those services. And while it is not an exact science, I think the staff does a good job of preparing the budget. You know, it's very rare we're going to hit that number right on the head. Better to be above than below. But what we need to do with that money, the fiscally responsible thing to do, and probably the morally responsible thing for the public, is to put that money right back into the next year and spend it on services for our citizens. That's money that we've either collected in taxes or other sources of revenue that have come to the city. Saving in a bank account isn't serving anybody. And it's actually an irresponsible, in my opinion, thing for a city to do. So when we talk about spending down our undesignated fund balance, that's not because we're out of control spending. That's by design to return services to the public. And I think it's really important for people to understand that. This is not a desperate cry for help. So I think that's important. And another thing that is important for people to understand is not all money is created equal. You did a good job of kind of explaining we have revenue that comes for that's strictly for capital projects. As you mentioned, SPLOST money. That money can't be used to hire new police officers. That money can't be used for certain things. It must go into capital projects, the bulk of which I think it's 87% to transportation, 12% to police, and about 1% to maintenance or so. And that's, so we can't use that money. So when we're building capital projects, we're not taking away money from the police department or other departments to build an intersection or to improve something else in the city or to construct a sidewalk. That money is from a separate pot and it can't go there. So it's very important for the people and the residents of the city to understand that, because I don't think there's a clear understanding of that in the city. And then just one final comment on the kind of some of the public dialogue I've heard. I've heard how our spending has gone up as a city and we're spending more than we ever have. And yes, that's true. But we're also growing as a city. When the city incorporated in 2008, we were 35,000 people. We are now over 52,000 people. That's a 47% increase in population. That increase in population requires additional services. Even without enhancing services, it just requires more service to those new residents. That costs money. For an example, our police department, when we incorporated, it was 40 officers. We are now at 68 officers. That's a 70% increase in our staff. And that's not just salaries and benefits. That's cars, that's equipment, that's training. It costs a lot of money. And I would probably get little resistance to say that I would wish that we could add even more police positions and hope we have the ability to do that. But all that costs money. And I could go down the list and I won't, but that's just a good example of, as we grow as a city, the demand for services grows as well. And you could throw in a recession and a global pandemic into the mix, and inflation. The city, things cost the city more, just like they cost everybody else more. And so it's important for the public to know that yes, expenses have gone up for everybody. But I think the city, in my opinion, has done a good job. And it's not by mistake. It's been through conservative budgeting and effective fiscal management. And I say we do a good job, but I think, quite honestly, the facts back that up. Pull all of the financial reports for the city going back, and the facts back that up. So I hope the public understands the situation. Now, to some concerns that have been raised, yes, there are concerns and challenges that lay ahead. There's no doubt about that. But I think we've proven effective in handling those. Those challenges continue to get more challenging. And certainly we're going to face some difficult decisions in future years. But for right now and where we stand today and looking at 2025, I think the city has done a very good job of providing those services that our residents demand. And the staff has done a great job of managing that. So thank you. And that's the only comment I want to make. Mayor Deutsch.
I do. Clarify at least one or two things you said. So one thing is that you mentioned 4 IT positions. And I think to a casual observer, that might sound like we created 4 new positions. Could you clarify the reality there, please?
Sure. Yes, they were just converted. So they were contract positions and we converted them to city positions.
Okay. I want to ask you another question. Are we for the police? I want to clarify something. So when you were talking about the positions that we have not yet funded, that were in the report for police, you have assured us that when they fill the 10 vacancies, and it sounds like from the HR report earlier that we may have filled some of those in the last month or so, excuse me, that we will, once they fill that, we have budgeted the 10 positions that are vacant right now are budgeted for, correct? Or it's not 10 anymore, but the vacant positions that they're actively recruiting for are funded, correct?
Correct, yes.
Yep. Once those positions are all filled, we can then add positions and we'll just figure we have the resources to pay for them, whether it's from current operating funds or from reserves, correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. So everything that Tom said with 1 or 2 exceptions, and I just want to further clarify. One is that this city was founded in 2008 with a report that provided the bare minimum so that the numbers would work. It said we should have around 22 police officers, but we never only had 22 police officers. We started with 40. One of the challenging parts of my position as mayor, and I'm sure the city manager and council would agree, is getting a fully staffed police department. And we are surrounded by neighbors who are just flat out, they have far more tax revenue than we do. And I joke, only half joking, that they can wake up in the morning and decide to give their public safety employees a raise just out of the blue, or because they perceive they need to be more competitive, which then means we need to be more competitive. When I ran for mayor 4.5 years ago, public safety spending was about 30% of our budget, and now it's about 40%. This is what has driven most of the increases in our budget. There are definitely small additions here and small additions there, but the vast majority of the increase in our budget is particularly in the last 4 years. And I'm really proud of that, right? I don't think we were paying our public safety employees a fair wage. And I'm really proud that we've jumped. I can't quite do the math. Can you do it, Richard? How much their salaries have gone up in the last 4.5 years?
Oh boy, I'd have to look. It's well over 40%, I believe, though.
Oh yeah, no, I think they were in the low 40s for starting, and now they're in. I mean, that's like with no experience and being 21.
Yeah.
And now they're
60 something, 61,000 or something like that. Yes.
I think this is a very positive thing. I think we are a big city. I think sometimes people forget that, and we're going to have big city expenses. And public safety remains our #1 priority, and we're going to have to talk about EMS as well, which I'm not sure was touched on, and you know, in the next year or two. So we're going to have lots of conversation as a community about where we go from here. But I appreciate everyone's on the staff's willingness to get the hard work done and come in with a budget that's manageable. And as Councilman Hennigan says, bare bones, we're not spending, we have neighbors that spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, I'm not kidding, a year on concerts, and we're not doing that. So that's just an example. We're very, very careful. So thank you all.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Deutsch. Thank you, Richard. Consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Rob, second by Stacy. John?
I'd like to either remove item number 9 or make a motion that I say no to item number 9. So I'm not sure what's appropriate. Sharon, would you like us to pull it?
I'll probably defer to the city attorney, but what we've done in the past is we show that you voted against that item
Right.
and that we reflect that in the minutes.
Since the vote is not bifurcated, it might be good to withdraw the motion to approve the consent agenda, move the agenda item separate to business, and deal with the consent agenda. Sharon, historically, I don't know how y'all account for a bifurcated vote. Meaning, I'm approving the consent agenda. 1, 2, 3.
Correct.
I defer to the Mayor Pro Tem.
I believe it's cleaner to just remove it and vote that way. So we can leave it as agenda number 9, but just remove it from consent.
Works for me.
I remove my motion then for the consent agenda.
Withdraw the second.
I'll withdraw.
All right. I move to remove item number 9 from the consent agenda.
Second.
And do we have to vote to approve that? Yeah. Vote to approve the amended agenda. All in favor? Aye.
I think the
Oh.
motion is to remove 9 from the consent agenda.
Right.
Treat it as
Add
a
it.
separate item. So you'll vote on that first, and then you'll take a motion on the consent agenda as it remains after amendment.
Correct. He's not removing it from the agenda. He's moving it to the
You're moving
business.
it to new
You're moving it
business.
to the business section. So making it the new number 10.
Like say
Number
number
9,
9.
new number
yes.
9, correct.
You may repeat it.
Yes, please. I thought I.
Yeah, Mayor Pro Tem, right now, you need, you've got a motion on the table to remove consent agenda item 9 to new business from the consent agenda. Is that correct, Mr. Price?
Not to new business, just to remove it from the consent agenda.
So it's got to land
And-
somewhere
yeah.
if you're fixing the agenda.
It would be a business item.
Just
It'd be an
under
action item.
business, yeah, under business, I'm sorry.
Right.
So you need a second on that.
Second.
So moved by Rob, second by Stacy. I'm sorry, second by John. All in favor of the motion as stated?
Aye.
Say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, no opposition. So the
All right, I move to
Yeah.
approve the consent agenda.
Second.
moved by Rob, second by Stacy. All in favor of the consent agenda? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
For the record, Mayor Pro Tem, I think the mayor
Also
supported
voted in
those
the-
motions, both to
Yes.
move item 9 based on her hand and also to support the
Both.
consent agenda.
Yes, sorry, I voted yes on both.
Okay.
I
Okay.
now move to approve item number 9.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Any discussion?
No discussion. The only issue I was voting for is I'm voting against this due to the sidewalks in front of single family home. So thank you.
Okay, all in favor of item number 9, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye. Nay. What do you want to say?
And just to confirm, Mayor Deutsch, you voted in the affirmative,
Correct.
correct? All
I
right,
voted affirmatively. Sorry, I hit the wrong button.
so the motion passes 4-1. Our next business item is a second read. Sharon, could you read that for us, please?
An ordinance to amend an ordinance to amend chapter 26 of the City of Dunwoody Code of Ordinances to update pole banner regulations. Allegra.
All right. So I have a couple updates since the last time this went before you all on September 23rd. So we revised the administrative standards to allow for more grandfathering in for recent pole banner applicants. So now the way the administrative standard with that would for that would work is that the applicants must have had a pole banner permit for 2 of the 3 years in 2022, 2023, or 2024. And then we are recommending leaving the other 2 administrative standards as is, since it restricts the usage of the public right of way to entities and programs where the city already has a committed interest. So I have all 3 of the administrative standards on the screen here. And so just as a reminder, the text amendment would line up the code with current practices for pole banners and capture all organizations that presently install pole banners. So we're fixing a couple problems with the code. The 2 biggest fixes are changing the height and size requirements to be in line with the height and size aspects of the pole banners that are currently existing. And that is the only updates I have, but I have the rest of my presentation from the last meeting if anyone needs me to reference anything.
Thank you, Allegra. Council comments or questions? Mayor Deutsch, any comments or questions?
Sorry, no, just if I don't interrupt, just assume there's not. This is hard to do on a phone, sorry.
I understand, no problem. Okay, this is a business item.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Stacy, second by Rob. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes 4-1. Business item 11, construction of the Dunwoody Nature Center stream and wetland improvements. David.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having me this evening. My name is David Elliott. I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about our project out at the Dunwoody Nature Center.
You will have to excuse us. His presentation is not in the folder it's supposed to be in. Council, if you could use our discretion and flip the order and go to your next item, and then we'll come back to this after we find the presentation and put it on here. Just move to the next item.
You can do that as Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay, thank you. Dealing with technical difficulties, we'll move on to a discussion item. Treetop Quest, Dunwoody Renewal Agreement. Rachel.
Good evening. So just diving right in. So Treetop Quest Dunwoody, we are fulfilling their initial 10-year agreement this December. So I've worked with finance and purchasing to get our language updated for this next session. Just as a little bit of background, they were awarded the informal request for proposal for back in 2014 to design, install, and operate a tree canopy obstacle course within Brook Run Park. They began operations in the park of spring of 2015. And like I said, this is now concluding their initial 10-year agreement. Initially, they were chosen to fulfill a need. That space within Brook Run had not been activated. Specifically, we were looking for something for our teens. Happy to report this since then they've expanded, and now I think you can start as early as age 4, goes all the way up to, they say 4 to 99. They've done a really great job of expanding their programs in that area, and we're thrilled to have them in our park. They also operate out of Buford over in Gwinnett. They just opened an office or an obstacle course in Philly. Part of our agreement for them utilizing the space is that they pay 5% of their annual gross profits. Just a little highlight here of the last 2 years, how they've done so far. That 2024 year-to-date number was through August, I believe. So they're having another great year. We've never had to worry about their minimum guarantee of $25,000 annually. And one thing to note is they do offer a 10% discount to Dunwoody residents and employees. It's come to my attention that that's not as transparent as it should be. I have a call in to their marketing team to address that. That did come up earlier this week. And that's just kind of overview. I mean, like I said, they run a great program. We're thrilled to have them in our park. They've expanded. They now do like Santa comes through the zip lines for the holidays. They do glow in the dark. They do a ton of work for birthday parties, field trips. It's just a really, really popular amenity. So we're excited to have this in front of you tonight. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Rachel. Any questions or comments? Rob?
I guess just a couple of general questions. One, we've had this for 10 years. What's been the citizen feedback you've gotten over the last couple of years?
I mean, people love it. They're very engaged with, like I said, always come up with new programs. We get a lot of requests, especially in the summer, about birthday parties, camps, that sort of thing. Just kind of a different way to have the kids activate and do something that maybe they haven't done before. But I feel like birthday parties and field trips are kind of their big market.
And the other question is, in terms of your staff time and effort, does this require any extra time or resources to have that tenant there operating, or is it just kind of self-sufficient?
No, they're really self-sufficient. We have yet to see anything, anything within their fenced area they're responsible for as far as maintenance. Any upgrades like their trailer area, things like that, that's all on them. We periodically, they'll ask us to help, like Amy, our arborist, will go out and do an assessment of their trees. That is part of their agreement. They need to do that every year. But no, to date, we've had no big expenses really for our staff, which is great.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, thank you, Rachel. I'm interested about the safety aspect of the event. What type of, I know there's inspections that are done. What type of reinvestment have they made? They've been there 10 years. What's the lifespan of the cable? What's the lifespan of the harnesses? What's the reinvestment that they have done besides just paying us their annual fee?
So when I met with their team earlier this year, they do that at least once a year. They have a specialized group that goes out, they climb everything, climb the course, check for where things are mounted to the trees, check for the ropes that you're referring to. And per their contract, if there's any sort of issue, they are to address that immediately. If it requires them closing down the park, they have to do that. So again, they did it earlier this year, when I came on board. And they'll do it again. Their season runs through about mid-November, so they'll kind of do that again December, January before their season begins next year.
All right, so as the Parks Director, you have oversight of them and you check that stuff, and as far as their safety and their reinvestment, and you've basically seen and are satisfied that they're doing a good job. I know they have insurance. I know all that's been checked. I just want to make sure that they are providing a quality, safe environment for our citizens.
Yeah, so they'll have their annual report, like you're mentioning with maintenance, plus that our support is due to us at the end of every year. So I'll have that here in a couple months.
Yeah, and then again, I know that's 5%. I'm just looking, everything seems to go up and it seems like the exact same contract. I guess you're satisfied. I don't want to put the cost onto the citizens as much as, because it's the cost of the event that we're getting a percentage of, but is it a fair price in the sense of other attractions? I really haven't priced it all. So, I mean, I'm guessing I guess it's fine. I'll stop there. Thank you.
No, that's fair. Considering I said we've yet, I don't know, I have to go back when they first built the park, but that $25,000 threshold has never been an issue, which is great. And then to Rob's point, just the fact that it's very low maintenance, if anything, for my staff is always a
Right.
win for us since we're a pretty small team.
All right, thank you.
I don't know, probably 5, 6 years ago, I took, for 2 years in a row, I took, a group of 50, ages campers from ages 5 to 17 there, and, it was very well loved. I was interested to hear you say they have a night with Santa and glow in the dark, because that's never something I've seen advertised. So when we talk about with marketing, and yes, there is a discount for, Dunwoody residents, like, I would love to know when there's glow in the dark, I mean, I'm an adult, but that sounds fun. Glow in the dark zip line across the parking lot. So I would just love to, as we move forward, like meld that more with our, with your parks marketing about what's
Yeah.
going on in the park.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Santa, I think, has been around for a few years. The glow in the dark might be new this year to at least the Dunwoody location. But that was on the list of things between myself and the marketing team, was that sort of exposure to the public for things like that. Yep.
Thank you, Rachel. Yeah, I just have a quick comment. We just talked about budget and limited resources, and, in all likelihood, this is an attraction that the city would not be able to provide on its own, just because of the cost of infrastructure to put it in, and staff and all of that kind of stuff. And so it's great that we have these partnerships to add these programs that our residents get to enjoy, but using our parks to do that. So, I've heard nothing but positive feedback from people I know that have gone there. So I'm glad that everything looks positive to renew it. And I saw the mayor pop up on the screen, so I presume she has a question or comment.
Sorry, you can't hear me, but now you can. Rachel, at one point they were selling memberships. I'm curious if they still do that.
They do.
And if they do we have any idea how many people are buying memberships?
They do. They actually sent me that. I didn't include that, but I can send that over.
It's fine. I'm just curious.
Yeah.
I think the people that use it really like it. I get complaints about nearly everything, and I don't think I've ever had a complaint about them. So that's an endorsement if there ever was one.
Yes.
To raise John's point a tiny bit, I want you to make sure that the percentage is what we need it to be. Like you said, it's low maintenance. But just double check your math and make sure that that's all good. And like I said, no complaints. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. We all agreement on consent? Consent. Okay. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
Are we get the leapfrog back? Okay, back to the Dunwoody Nature Center. Stream and wetland improvements.
Okay, thank you again for having me tonight. Sorry about that previous glitch. My name is David Elliott, and I'm here to talk to you about the stream, wetland, and boardwalk improvements project at the Dunwoody Nature Center. The city is proposing to construct an improvements project that hits basically the boardwalk, a stream channel. It's roughly 400 feet of stream, and the adjoining wetland. Basically, it's anticipated to break ground approximately 30 days once we are able to execute the contract. This map that you're seeing on the right is a basic layout of the boardwalk. What's dominant here in at least this image is the boardwalk layout. I'll bring to your attention that there's 2 playground areas on the top of the hill here and here that this boardwalk is going to provide access to. We'll talk a little bit more about that on, I think, the next 2 slides. And the stream improvements will happen along this section of the stream. And there's also a number of, or one main wetland improvement area that's outlined in this basically dashed yellow line. So a little bit of history out here, I'll be brief, is this project was envisioned in 2016 as part of the master plan for the Dunwoody Nature Center. In 2021, there was a technical memo by Brown and Caldwell that helped isolate the project, focus on those 400 feet of stream, and also identified the need to rebuild the DNC boardwalk. In May of 2023, City Council approved Freese and Nichols to perform the design associated with this project. And this last April through July, we've been seeking a grant from the EPD to help fund this project, which has been successful. They've funded $600,000 towards the project. In August, we got the construction approvals and finalized the design and put it out to bid. In September, we received 2 qualified bids and have been in the process of evaluating those. And here on October 15th, we're here to seek approval for this construction contract. I've seen a number of these projects, and the thing that really stands out to me about this one is that it really is a multi-purpose project in terms of the benefits that it brings to the Dunwoody Nature Center, the education programs. I'm sure y'all are already familiar with the sidewalk areas that are kind of in the woods and on the side of the hill. Another thing about this project is it's getting ADA access up to those playground areas. It's providing outdoor classrooms. I've seen homeschool groups out there. I'm sure they would use it. And I think just the regular visitors of Dunwoody will use the boardwalk. And then in addition to that, we've got the stream improvements that are going to be happening. And basically there are several areas of that bank that are eroded and starting to fail of that 400 feet of stream. And this would repair those areas, come back and plant all native vegetation. And the other main component of this project is water is entering that stream just from drainage from the surrounding neighborhood and the Dunwoody Nature Center itself through a series of kind of wet weather ditches or gullies, whatever you want to call them. And they're making their way down to the stream. Some of it's quite eroded. And this project, part of it's going to be excavating out that wetland area and directing those gullies into that excavated area. So it'll act more like a natural floodplain and collect water in those areas. And then in moderate storms, it would just slowly percolate that back into the stream itself. So it really has a lot of public benefits as well as water quality benefits. The one other thing that I wanted to mention in that regard is this proposed design is elevating the boardwalk. The current boardwalk's in it's a smaller boardwalk, and has areas that really need to be repaired. So this will be a major upgrade. It's also going to be elevated so that the 100-year storm would actually be underneath the boardwalk. I know there's a frequent maintenance need by the Parks Department out there to when that area does flood. There's a lot of sediment and debris and everything that gets all over that boardwalk. So this will get us up above that. It's roughly 4 or 5 feet higher than the existing elevation up above the 100-year floodplain. So this slide is the entire budget for this project. What we're actually asking for approval for tonight, that's outlined in the memo, are really the first 2 items. So Freese and Nichols did our design. They came up with a construction budget of approximately $1.7 million. Our base bid for our preferred contractor actually came in just underneath that $1.7 million. And we did some value engineering on the foundations to get us down to $1,542,000. And so that's on the agenda to be approved tonight. In addition to that, we're asking for a 12% contingency to help handle unknowns and a couple of things that we suspect we'll need to do some repairs on the access road, and also a couple of some finalized designs on the boardwalk itself. So what we're asking for approval tonight is the 1,542,000, and then also the 185,000 of contingency. Now, in addition to those 2 items, we do suspect there to be a 5% construction management fee and then also a roughly $5,000 of geotechnical that would be needed. But that's really the top two items are the ones we're asking for funding approval tonight. I'll also remind you, but because this project is so multifaceted, the EPD did give us the $600,000 grant towards this project. So the total budget of the project is $1,818,000. 600 of that will ultimately be funded by the EPD through a 319 grant. So again, what's asking for tonight is funding for the first two items, which totals $1,727,523. That includes the bid from Steele and Associates to both construct the wetland, do the stream improvements, do the wetland improvements, and a 12% contingency for things with that project we might encounter. And we've got, with that, I'll open it up to any of you that may have questions or comments about this project.
Thank you, David. Comments and questions? John?
David, we've done a lot of work out at the Nature Center. When this project is done, is there any other stormwater that needs to be addressed? I mean, because again, we've done it, stormwater projects in the past. You're telling me about the stormwater gullies that are going to be dug out and put into holding ponds. What's left?
I don't know of anything else that is left that's on our planning horizon, except some support for the Wildcat Learning Center that I think you guys have been are aware of. But there could be, when that gets constructed, there will be some stormwater support associated with that project. But in terms of the general grounds,
okay,
that's it.
So their expansion or whatever they're doing in the future may have some stormwater aspects to their project, but we're giving a set fund for that, and we won't have any insight or other projects to do with the stormwater in the future, as far as you can tell.
Yes, well, there's a budget for and part of that I understand is in talks right now, but there is a budget that we're anticipating specifically for stormwater that would help out, that would do the stormwater controls on that project, for basically to help drain water off that parking lot and away from that building, but associated with that new building. That's right.
All right. All right. Thank you. I'm in favor.
One, if you could kind of expand upon how we got to the reduced cost. And I just want to make sure that the Dunwoody Nature Center people are on board with that. I understand that something changed. I just didn't understand what.
Sure. So in our original design, we had what were designated what were called helical piers. And if you know what a sheetrock screw looks like, it's basically a giant sheetrock screw that goes into the floodplain. It's a way to prevent from having to dig a big hole in the floodplain and pour traditional footing. But it's basically a large helical pier, a large screw that goes down into the project. After communicating with a few other parks departments that have successfully installed this, and having this recommended to us by the preferred contractor that we've selected, we decided to, what we're proposing is that we use piles out there. So this is construction that's basically similar to a dock that you might see at a lake or a beach or whatever. And the way that they do it is as they build the boardwalk, they can drive their equipment out onto the boardwalk that they've already built. So they don't have to get down on the boardwalk and build things. Now, as a caveat, we do have to get excavators on the ground to do the stream and wetland work. But when it comes to the actual boardwalk, it's basically constructed with a mini excavator, and it has a piece of equipment that will drill a hole, and then and say that hole's 8 inches, and then it will vibrate a pile in, in that same hole, that if they drilled an 8-inch hole, it may be a 9-inch pile, so a slightly larger diameter. But instead of the large screws that I talked about with the helical piers, the main design difference is these driven piles, and it will be construction, again, similar to what you would see on a dock at a beach or a lake.
So the cost savings is the screws are more expensive than the piles?
Essentially, yes.
Okay. Cool.
Yes.
So then my next question is, this is all 100% paid for from stormwater fund, right?
Yes.
And the grant, right, and the grant.
It would be funded with stormwater reserve funds and the grant. That's correct.
Okay. So, and I know this kind of is, and just bear with me a little bit, just because we were talking about the budget tonight, how is the stormwater fund funded, and how is it that we can fund a $1.5 million project out of stormwater fund?
Sure. Basically the stormwater fee is a separate fee that shows up that the taxpayers pay based off of what type of property they have and how big it is and how much impervious area. The impervious area comes into the calculation if it's a commercial or industrial property. But those funds are set aside. And the other aspect to those is that there's a municipal index fund that tracks municipal construction cost really across the nation. And it's tied to our rate so that if the cost for municipal construction in recent years, the increases have been quite a lot. I think some years, north of 5%. So if it's 7% that year, then our stormwater fee goes up that 7%. If it's 2%, then in an inflation in the construction cost for municipal governments, then our stormwater fee would go up 2%. If it's negative 2%, then our fee would go down 2%. But that's essentially the mechanics of the stormwater utility fee.
So we, city council, we never see that. That's just a mechanism that Public Works deals with, and they declare what it is, and the citizens pay that tax, and we're able to fund this.
Yes, it's a fee instead of a tax technically, but that's right. The general fund is not associated with these stormwater approvals, these stormwater fees. The fees that I'm speaking of are set aside specifically for stormwater projects and not part of the general fund.
Thank you for indulging me with that explanation. I also think it's important that the public knows that it's a separate fee that is not controlled by us, but in fact is able to fund these projects. And when a sinkhole appears, we're able to get it repaired instantly. No, not instantly. It's a public works project. Never mind.
Richard, is there also ARPA funds that went into the stormwater?
So recently, we have had a lot of ARPA funding. Again, that was after the pandemic and everything, that money became available. We have almost exhausted those funds because we've been aggressively repairing a lot of pipes and doing that work. But it has allowed, because we were spending ARPA money, we have been able to build up a little bit of stormwater fee money that we were just talking about. And that's basically the fees. That's basically the funding that
I just thought we should mention that the federal funds are also went towards stormwater. So
yes, sir.
All right,
Yes,
thank you.
Mayor Deutsch, any comments or questions?
Nope, thank you. Great
Okay,
project.
thank you.
Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
and Stacey, you actually hit both questions I had. One was on the different value engineering and making sure that we were getting the product that met the needs and the long-term goals, like we weren't saving a few $100,000, something that might not last as long or might not serve the purpose, but it sounds like we're all good, right? Okay, and then, yeah, and thank you, Stacey, for reiterating, and David for reiterating the point I was trying to make earlier in the budget discussion that, certain funds go to certain things. So if people see this price tag and say, well, let's hire police with that. We can't. This is dedicated to stormwater, and also from a grant. So thank you for that.
Right. Thank you.
Yep. Consent.
Consent is fine with me.
Okay. Thank you.
No, this was an action item.
Oh, it is a business. I am sorry. You're right. Because we went out of order. This is
Right.
This is
Second. John.
Moved by John,
Second.
second by Stacy. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
The mayor was okay with it, yeah.
It passes unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, John. Yeah. Okay, next is item number 13, contract amendment with Triscapes for road and stormwater maintenance.
Okay, yes, I'm here tonight to talk about a contract amendment with Triscapes to add a second road and stormwater maintenance crew. About 2 years ago, we entered into a contract with Triscapes. And at the time, we went to one 4-person crew to do both road and stormwater maintenance. Prior to that time, since the beginning, really since the stormwater fund started, we had one crew in each. But based on the amount of paving we had done and how much we've rehabilitated the pipes in the city, overall, the infrastructure is in better condition. And so Public Works wanted to try and see if we could manage the workload with one crew. And overall, we've been able to do that the last couple of years. This is a chart of the number of work orders completed in a year per crew. So it's just really comparing one crew. We felt like with the previous contractor, we had lost some productivity, and that's one of the reasons we wanted to make a change. And we have seen, on a per crew basis, that we have increased the number of work orders that we've completed in the last 2 years. It can be tricky to compare number of work orders completed as a metric because not every work order is the same. It takes a lot less time to clean leaves out of a catch basin than it does to patch a big section of roadway. But in general, we've seen a uptick in the productivity, and for the most part, we've been able to keep up with the workload. But recently, we took a little closer look at this, and recently we're seeing that a couple of things. One is that we've been keeping up with most of the repair type maintenance, but some of the preventative maintenance is lagging a little bit. When we look at the number of work orders completed for cleaning structures or pipe the last 3 years, the last year we've done less of that because they've been prioritizing keeping up with the repairs. Another item that we're seeing where we're getting more requests, like I mentioned, the road and pipe maintenance infrastructure is improved in better shape, but we do have a lot of old sidewalks. And so we're seeing more requests for sidewalk repairs, and that's where most of our backlog is building right now. So we feel like we need to put the second crew back on. But from a financial standpoint, we have saved money the last couple of years by going to this one crew. We've been able to get more work orders done per crew, and we have saved some money, but we're starting to see the costs, even with just one crew, go back up. And some of that is because of inflation, but some of it is that we've been out, bringing in other specialty contractors to do some of the repairs that the one crew maybe takes too much time for them to do. So we feel like overall that there's a need to put the second crew back on. To keep it within budget and to meet our needs. The original contract, as I mentioned, was a 4-person crew. It was an annual rate for a 4-person crew. We have a price for a prorated rate, that just 3/4 of that rate for a 3-person crew. And one crew would be assigned to stormwater and one crew would be assigned to roads, just like it was up until 2 years ago. And so we're recommending approval of that, and I'll answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Michael. Comment or questions? And yeah, I have a quick question. On the actual amended amount of 325, the contract we currently have I think ends in September. But we're not
of next year.
Of next year, correct. But So that's not a full year. They also prorating that it's either 10 or 11 months instead of 12 months? Because it appears like it's a full 12-year.
Yes, well, the way they bill it, they
Or
take
12-month.
that annual rate and divide it into 12 months. A month, it'll be charged as a monthly rate. So we'll only pay that monthly rate for the months that we use it.
Okay, so it's not a full, okay.
Yeah.
Right, because when I did the math, it seemed like we were overpaying a little bit, but it'll be paid on a monthly basis, so,
Right.
okay. All right, thank you. Mayor Deutsch? I didn't see her pop up, so I'm going to presume no questions.
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Michael. Consent? Consent? Consent. Thank you.
So just a small break.
All right, we will take a 5-minute recess and return to the agenda in 5 minutes. Thank you. Okay, thank you, everybody. We'll call the meeting back to order. And we will move on to discussion item number 14, proposed charter amendment for Article Section 2.13A4 prohibitions. Eric.
Turn my mic on. There we go. Okay, if you'll, I'm gonna draw your attention to the agenda item on the memorandum that's in there. Under that discussion section of the memo, it talks about municipal charters may be amended by ordinances duly adopted at 2 regular consecutive meetings of a municipal governing authority, not less than 7 nor more than 60 days apart. And the notice will be in the official legal organ of the county. And that ad appears once a week for 3 weeks within a period of 60 days immediately preceding its final adoption. Okay, so what this is for is, that's how a charter amendment can occur within the city of Dunwoody. And so those are the basic rules under the official code of Georgia, section 36-35-3B1, authorizes cities to amend its charters. So under this, item number 14 on the agenda is the proposed charter amendment seeks to amend section 2.13A4 prohibitions. And this is to provide aid and support of law enforcement and to provide aid and support of city personnel facing hardships due to serious health conditions of the employee or immediate family members defined as spouse, child, or parent. So we have an entity within the city that wants to provide support to police officers, and it's not allowed currently because there's a $100 limitation within the charter. It talks about no more than $100 maybe contributed to an employee from an outside organization. This will work to change that rule to allow under certain hardships and also for the police or general employees and organization to donate under these conditions. So that's the overall amendment that's being proposed for the charter. And what we're asking for tonight is the authorization to move forward with the advertisement and to go ahead and start that schedule. With the proposed schedule, if approved, would start tomorrow. And then we would move into subsequent meetings for the city council after these dates, after this 3 weeks of advertising. And it would come back before the city council. And I'm glad to answer any questions. Sharon also has the proposed schedule. Mr. Bernard is here to answer any questions from a legal standpoint as well.
Thank you, Eric. Rob.
So, I like this change. I thank you for providing some synopsis on how this might happen. The one question I have, and I don't know if it would be included in the charter or in kind of our guidance, if we're going to allow nonprofits to provide some support for, say, a police officer that's been injured and is facing financial hardship, I just would like to make sure we have documentation of what was donated somehow publicly available. I think that's maybe an important step. I don't see this being misused, but it could be, and I think if there's some documentation, at least someone can look and see how much was given, what was given. You know, it could be in-kind gifts, you know, if somebody needs wheelchair ramps or something like that, but just some sort of publicly available documentation on what was given.
I think that.
So, if I can add, and I hear what you're saying. So, let me break this down in 2 components, because there's really 2 components here. The law enforcement component, the concern was, for instance, if a K-9 unit handler got donated food, you know, does it violate the $100 minimum if they build a shelter, you know, an animal group builds a shelter for a K-9 unit, is that somehow benefiting? But this section doesn't take away the ethical obligation of the officer or anybody else. It's just not a automatic no where the $100 threshold would be. The second component regarding a serious health condition really tracks FMLA law. That language is used in FMLA. And we started thinking, well, first of all, we don't want to discriminate by class of employee, number one. But if someone has that kind of circumstance, officer or not, it would apply. But if, you know, if somebody had a child that had cancer and went to Danny Kaye Hospital and got free services, we have no way of accounting for that but we didn't want it to be excluded as a matter immediately. So what I would suggest is if you move forward, let's don't try to write the charter, all the little, let's keep it open. And then have the city manager and the police chief adopt policies that can be used to enforce what you're really trying to get at. And that is, if somebody wants to help somebody and it's not to buy them off, it's not to bribe somebody, under these circumstances that y'all would allow it. But I hear exactly what you're saying, Councilman Price. I don't disagree with it. But for a charter, I think we want to be broad stroke, and then you create boundaries for your city manager or city policy or the police chief to run that scope within it.
I'm totally fine with that approach. I just want to make sure that somewhere we have policy that gets at
Eric,
that. So thank you.
Yes, I got it. I got it right here. And we could use the, we have our internal auditor, and also we can set up a program through our finance department.
Eric, this is the first time we are changing our charter, proposing to change our charter. We have never done so in the past. I'm fine with this change and the next change. I'm fine with it. It makes common sense to me. The issue I have is that where do we draw the line? What's next? What's the home rule aspect? Why don't we do, I've always heard the 1 mil exemption. Let's exempt that out today too. Let's advertise that and see where that goes. I mean, where do we draw the line? Let's change this. Let's change that. What is the definition of home rule, and what are the limits of our authority in changing a charter in this method?
Well, yeah, I can try to address that, generally speaking. So let me first start with what I've said all along, and that is, and by the way, what I'm saying has been tested because I have a group that represents it's not my group, it's Jima's group that represents all the lawyers that represent cities in the state of Georgia. And so when it comes to discussions among lawyers about what you can and can't do for municipal charter amendments, what we're doing, nobody disagrees with. Nobody says you can't do that. So there are some limitations, and let me tell you what they are. So the 3635.3, essentially, Eric sort of giving the preamble, municipal charters may be amended by ordinance. Boom, 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 how to do it. What you can't do is you cannot except as provided in 3635.6, which y'all don't have, and I'm going to read you those two. These are the home rule exceptions. You can't change y'all's term of office by charter amendment. You can't change the staggering, if there's staggering election, by charter. You can't change the election process that's established by Georgia law. You can't define an offense which is already defined in the criminal laws of Georgia. You can't try to change it. You can't provide for confinement in excess of 6 months. You can't provide for fines and bonds forfeitures in excess of $1,000 by charter amendment. There's another route for all that. You can't adopt a form of taxation that's not on the books in the state of Georgia. You couldn't create a new tax that's not recognized throughout the state of Georgia. You couldn't change the power of eminent domain granted to you by the state of Georgia. You couldn't expand it, is my point. You can't expand that power. You can't expand the power of regulation over any business activity regulated by the Public Service Commission. You can't affect the jurisdiction of any court of law. You can't change provisions relating to the establishment or operations of an independent school system. And that's what you can't do.
Right.
So you can do everything else. And so the law, not on, long time ago, this was taken up by Mike Bowers when he was AG, and he opined, yes, you can amend charters and blah, blah, blah. But the state legislature actually adopted a law saying, you can do this, here's how you do it. And they've also said what you can't do. And I've just read you what you can't do. So if it's not on the list of what you can't do, you can do it. So that's where we are. You do have the one thing you couldn't do, let me have a couple little caveats. I want to be careful about this. What you can't do is you couldn't change your homestead by ordinance. If it's been voted in, the homestead exemption, you can't change that except by referendum. That's somewhere else buried in this code. The other thing that you can't do, and I just had a 60-year-old moment on what I was coming out of my tongue with. If a referendum failed within a 12-month period of time, you can't overcome the referendum by legislative fiat within a 12-month period of time from that failure. That's the list of restrictions. We've researched the case law. We spent an extensive amount of time on this. I went beyond my 35 years to make sure I expanded out. And so I'm very comfortable telling you can do everything you're about to try to do. Now, it's your legislative prerogative whether you do it or not. I'm not telling you to do it or not do it, but you can do it. And I've given you the exceptions.
Well, thank you. I just know that we've had two prior charter commissions that had recommendations in each of those. And in that charter commission, I think we were ordered by the charter to hold those commissions. And I think they may have even directed us to give the recommendations to the legislature. I'm not sure. But all I know is that the charter commissions were held, recommendations were made for changes to the charter, and we did nothing. Again, I'm not against these two changes. I'm happy to make them and move forward. I agree with everything you're saying, Counselor. I just want to make sure moving forward, number one, I don't understand why we didn't make changes in the past if they were easy to do, if it made sense to do. Maybe they didn't make sense. And then the other was the, moving forward, what's next if we wanted to change our next charter, the definition of home rule, what are we allowed to do? How do we do it? Why do we do it? All that aspect. That's for, I guess, another day. These two, based on the law that is quoted, we're able to make the changes. And again, I've reviewed, by my opinion, I think we're good to make the changes. So thank you. Looking forward
John,
to
can
it.
I just add one thing? I can't speak for the past. I do think the charter provides for reports, but I think it's up to y'all whether you take legislative action or not on commission reports. But I don't want to be quoted because I didn't read that tonight. But one thing I wanted to point out, the reason why these two are sort of, instead of getting a la carte in a bunch of different sections, these two are all under the prohibition section. So it's an easy change that doesn't affect other aspects of the charter. I was concerned and advised Eric and others that I would be very careful about coming up with a hodgepodge, because when you tinker one section, you got to look at all the other ones. How does it down roll? This one section played out well for these two because they fit in the same subsection, if that makes any sense.
It does. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll just comment, John, I understand your concerns, but I think the home rule is a good thing for cities because it gives us the autonomy to kind of handle our own affairs without having to go to the state legislator on a lot of things. But like any other power or authority granted to us by the state, we have the responsibility to exercise it in a responsible manner. So I think as long as we continue to do that, and I think we have historically have, that won't be an issue. Mayor Deutsch, I see you. Do you have any comments or questions?
I just want to make it clear to the general public that this is not about elected officials. And I might have missed that in Eric's report because there was a blip. But our ethics stuff comes from the state Ethics Regulatory Board. I think that's the name, but the Georgia Ethics Regulatory Board. And so we have guidelines as elected officials that are put upon us by the state. So this isn't, I want to make sure people don't think this is about donations to elected officials. Because we are not, in Georgia, elected officials are not considered city employees.
That's a correct statement.
Right. So just want to make sure that if anybody's listening, that they think we're trying to give ourselves a slush fund. We are not. This is about our employees. And I'm sorry I was concerned that our newly reorganized Dunwoody Police Foundation would not be able to help police officers, which is the main reason they exist. So thank you all for taking care of this tonight.
So, Mayor Pro Tem, it essentially, this is a discussion item, but the concern was we don't want to have advertisements out there if this is not something the consensus was to move forward on. You're not really voting, but if there are strenuous objections to this, we need to know it before we start running ads.
Understood. Thank you for the clarification. So any other discussion on item 14? I think we can move to item 15, which is similar, proposed charter amendment. This is to Article 2, Section 2.13E, prohibitions. Eric.
Yes, sir. Okay, so this section falls under the same law that I read earlier. The difference on this one is what we're asking for here is the city seeks to amend charter prohibitions by permitting members of the city council to be employed by other governmental entities except Dunwoody, Georgia, or DeKalb County, Georgia. And I'm going to draw your attention to the marked up section E. Let me get the exact section. It is 2.13E. And so the current law says, or the charter says, except as authorized by law, no member of the city council shall hold any other elective city office or be employed by any city or county government during the term for which elected. Now, the proposed new language would be no member of the city council shall hold any other elected city office or be employed directly or indirectly by the city of Dunwoody, Georgia, or DeKalb County, Georgia, during the term for which elected. So what this allows is for a council person to work for any other city government with the exception of the city of Dunwoody or DeKalb County, Georgia.
Thank you, Eric. Any discussion?
I'll just echo kind of what I said with the last one. I think these both make sense. They seem like pretty reasonable fixes to our charter.
I said I'm in favor, but I'm also trying to think of unintended consequences. We have 60 police officers and we are paying a bunch of them to live in the city of Dunwoody. Would this then exempt them from being able to serve on the city council?
Well, this has nothing to do with the restriction on who serves on the city council. This has to do with whether the city council, what is a part-time job, can have employment outside of the city council with another government. Yep. And I will note the original charter didn't say anything about the state or federal government. It limited it only to city or county government. And I think this intent of this amendment is to restrict it down to the simplest thing, and that is our own government. Obviously, you don't want a city council person being elected that's making policy over themselves here. And second, DeKalb County, because there's too many interactions, even if it's friendly service delivery, blah, 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 the list goes on. But this doesn't have anything to do with the reverse. This has to do with the city council itself. And by the way, it does, I should point this out. In your charter, the definition of city council includes the mayor. So even though the mayor's name is not on this amendment, she or he is considered part of the city council for purposes of E.
I guess when I read this.
Yeah, go ahead, John. No, I think, go ahead.
All right, when I'm reading this, it says no member of the city council or be employed or directly by the city of Dunwoody. So you're saying that a member of the Dunwoody Police Department is able to run for city council?
No.
Okay, they're not allowed to.
No, we're not saying that.
They're exempt. They cannot run for city council.
They cannot.
So
nobody can sit on this council and be an employee of this city.
Okay.
Period.
I just want to make sure.
The reason why we said directly or indirectly, that would arguably include somebody that was a contracted employee. That is the indirect reason for using the word indirect. In other words, if you got a company that's leasing you employees, for our purposes, that would fall under direct or indirect.
All right.
So what does it
have your wife run?
Right. So what does it say right now? Like, I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me at the moment. What does it say?
Let me read it.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
No, I'm going to read both the current version.
Yeah, the current.
Read the proposed version.
Mm-hmm.
Except as authorized by law, no member of the city council shall hold any other elective city office or be employed by any city or county government during the term for which elected.
So already the Dunwoody police officers can't be, or anybody that works for the city of Dunwoody can't be an elected official in Dunwoody.
That's what it says.
That's what it says. So this is not
Yeah.
a change in that.
And we didn't change that.
Right.
This says, the new proposal says, no member of the city council shall hold any other elective city office or be employed directly or indirectly by the city of Dunwoody, Georgia, or DeKalb County, Georgia, during the term for which elected.
Right.
And if you're wondering what happened with except as authorized by law, that was superfluous language. We've looked it up. There is no, I think I'm gonna tell you what I think happened, but maybe y'all don't want to hear it. It probably had to do with the word state would have been involved in here and you were a reservist called up for, the Air National Guard or had federal employees and you were called up to active duty, there would have been a provision under law that said you're exempt during your call up. But that doesn't apply to this section at all, the way it's written, nor as proposed.
Well, thank you. I just wanted to put devil's advocate. I started thinking about it from the perspective
Yeah,
of.
no,
Yeah, but
What
put a
it's
different,
expecting, so.
put a different spin on that. If somebody, a resident of the city of Dunwoody was a police officer in Sandy Springs, under the current wording of the charter, they could not run for city council, but with the new wording, they would be able to.
It arguably broadens the pool of people interested in city government.
But it also, across the country, when we talk about developing municipal leaders, one of the challenges is this is a part-time job, but you have to have a very understanding full-time boss. And so it also broadens opportunities for future leaders of the city. And I will, like our first parks director, I don't know, I think he was an elected city council person in another city when he started here. So, there's definitely, and we had a consultant doing a lot of work for us. I think even serving as our interim community development director, and he was a city council person in Swanee. So there's definitely, places where this is already happening.
Okay, thank you. So based on the discussion, I did not hear any opposition to moving forward.
Yeah,
with
we would
this.
move forward with the advertisements, and you will have 3 successive weeks of advertisements. You'll have a first read, and then at the second read, you'll have it, and we'll get you the dates out whenever it gets established. It'll be in the paper.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Thank you, Eric. Okay, we're now on to public comments. And seeing none, we will move to city manager comments.
No further comments, and we do not need an executive session this evening.
Thank you. And while we're on the city manager comments, I have a comment for the city manager. Happy birthday, Eric. It's our city manager's birthday today, so happy birthday. City council comments. Anybody? I just have one comment. I just want to remind everybody, and I lost it on my phone. I had it all pulled up, sorry. That early voting started today. And there are multiple locations throughout the county that you could take advantage of that. One of them is right here in Dunwoody at the Dunwoody Library. I believe it's from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. on weekdays and 9 to 7 on Saturdays. You can look on it. I had it pulled up on my phone, but I somehow lost it. I apologize. But that information is available to pull up online. But early voting is available now. So Mayor Deutsch, any comments?
Thank you for bearing with me. We should have Zoom drills occasionally. Everyone have a good week. I don't know what happened in Dunwoody, but across the state, there was record-breaking early voting today. So make your plan if you haven't already to vote, but you have 18 more days of early voting and then election day. So you have 19 more days to vote.
Okay, thank you, John.
Richard, just for my own edification, can you remind us how much do we, the city of Dunwoody, we pay every year to make sure that there's early voting here in Dunwoody? Is that correct? Do I have that right?
We do.
How does that work? I mean, I've spent conversations.
We do not pay for that. We pay for the local elections. DeKalb will do the local elections for us. We don't pay anything.
For the early voting here in Dunwoody?
No, we
No,
don't
not,
have a precinct or anything here, no, so.
not anymore. Now
Not
it's,
anymore.
we did in the, I think we did in the early days of early voting. That's the only way I can think to say it. But now everybody in the state had to start early voting today by 9 o'clock. So it's
Okay.
now mandated, DeKalb chooses the locations, obviously. But I don't think we pay. I will tell you, and we're not going to talk about it tonight, that there are a few cities in Georgia that I learned have moved their municipal elections to even years so that they don't have to pay the fees. But, but yeah, so I think you don't pay the fees when when the county's having an election anymore.
All right, well, thank you for clarification. I just remember at one point we were
Yes,
paying
we
to
did.
have
We
early
paid.
voting here in Dunwoody for the citizens to have it convenient for them. So
Yes, we did.
thank you.
Oh,
Okay,
and also thank you to Public Works for getting the parking lot at Sproul and the library finished in ample time for early voting. We appreciate it.
Okay,
So,
thank you. And that completes the
thank you.
agenda for this evening.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Moved by Rob, second by Stacy. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.